In the early 8th century, the world was a tapestry of rising and falling empires. The Umayyad Caliphate, a formidable power, had swept across North Africa with astonishing speed. Their momentum seemed unstoppable, a tide of conquest washing over ancient lands. In 711, they crossed the Strait of Gibraltar, a narrow channel separating continents and fates. The Visigothic kingdom of Hispania, weakened by internal strife, crumbled before the invaders. With the Iberian Peninsula secured, the Umayyad forces looked north, beyond the formidable Pyrenees Mountains. The green, fertile lands of Francia, the heartland of the Franks, were the next prize. Raiding parties began to test the defenses of the southern Frankish realms. Aquitaine, a duchy in southwestern Gaul, bore the brunt of these initial incursions. In 732, a new, ambitious governor of Al-Andalus, Abd al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi, decided to launch a major expedition. He was a veteran commander, respected by his troops and confident in their abilities. Abd al-Rahman assembled a massive army, composed of Arab and Berber cavalry. Their strength lay in their mobility and the shock of their powerful charges. They crossed the Pyrenees and descended into Gaul like a storm. Duke Odo of Aquitaine, a proud and independent ruler, gathered his forces to meet them. Near the river Garonne, the two armies clashed in a brutal confrontation. Odo's army was shattered, his defenses broken completely. The city of Bordeaux was captured and thoroughly sacked, its wealth carried away. The invaders continued their march north, following the river valleys towards the heart of Francia. Their target was the wealthy abbey of Saint Martin of Tours, a center of pilgrimage and riches. Duke Odo, defeated and desperate, fled north to seek help from his former rival. His plea reached Charles, the mayor of the palace of the Frankish kingdom of Austrasia. Charles was not a king in name, but he held the true power in the land. He was a hardened warrior, forged in the constant conflicts that defined the era. He had spent years consolidating his rule and building a professional, loyal army. Charles understood the gravity of the threat posed by the Umayyad army. He agreed to help Odo, but only if the Duke swore fealty to him. With the submission of Aquitaine secured, Charles gathered his host. His army was different from the Umayyad force. It was composed primarily of infantry. These were not conscripts, but veteran soldiers who had fought with Charles for years. They were disciplined, tough, and trusted their commander implicitly. Charles marched his army south, using ancient Roman roads to move with surprising speed. He avoided direct confrontation, shadowing the Umayyad army. His goal was to choose the ground for the battle, to give his infantry the advantage. He found the perfect spot on a wooded, elevated plain between the cities of Tours and Poitiers. The trees would disrupt cavalry charges, and the slope would tire the enemy's horses. Charles positioned his men in a large, dense square formation. Were a wall of shields and spears, an immovable object planted on the high ground. When Abd al-Rahman's scouts located the Frankish army, he was surprised by their numbers and position. The Franks stood in silence, a stark contrast to the noise of the Umayyad camp. For 7 days, the two armies faced each other, the tension mounting with each passing hour. Skirmishes erupted between scouting parties, but no major attack was launched. Abd al-Rahman was hesitant to order a frontal assault against such a well-prepared defense. He had built his career on swift cavalry maneuvers, not grinding infantry battles. Meanwhile, the autumn weather grew colder, and the Umayyad troops were not equipped for it. Charles's strategy was working. Patience was his greatest weapon. Finally, on the 7th day, Abd al-Rahman's patience ran out. He ordered his heavy cavalry to charge the Frankish line. The ground thundered with the sound of thousands of hooves. The Frankish infantry braced for impact, their feet planted firmly in the earth. The first wave of cavalry crashed against the shield wall with ferocious force. But the line held, a testament to their discipline and courage. Again and again, the Umayyad horsemen charged, seeking a weak point. They swirled around the Frankish square, firing arrows and throwing javelins. The Franks stood firm, described by an Arab chronicler as a wall of ice. The battle raged for hours, a brutal contest of endurance. The Frankish infantrymen, using their spears and short swords, inflicted heavy casualties. Horses and men fell before the unyielding Frankish phalanx. Then a crucial moment shifted the tide of the battle. Scouts sent by Charles had circled around to the Umayyad camp. They began to raid the camp, creating chaos and freeing prisoners. A rumor spread like wildfire through the Umayyad ranks. Their loot was being stolen. The vast wealth from Bordeaux and other cities was in that camp. Greed and fear overcame discipline for some of the cavalrymen. They broke off their attack on the Frankish square to protect their treasure. This partial withdrawal was mistaken for a full-scale retreat by others. Abd al-Rahman saw his army beginning to dissolve. He rode into the fray, attempting to rally his men and restore order. In the chaos, he was surrounded by a small group of Frankish infantry. He fought bravely, but was cut down and killed. The death of their charismatic leader shattered the morale of the Umayyad army. The attack faltered, and then it broke completely. As night fell, the remnants of the Umayyad army retreated south in silence. They abandoned their tents, their wounded, and much of their plunder. The next morning, the Franks awoke to an eerie silence. They saw the deserted enemy camp and suspected an ambush. After careful reconnaissance, they confirmed the enemy had fled. Victory was total and decisive. For his role in this crushing victory, Charles was given a new name, Martel. The Battle of Tours marked the high-water mark of the Umayyad advance into Europe. Never again would a major Umayyad army push so far into the Frank land. The victory secured the borders of Francia and protected its future. It vastly increased the prestige and power of Charles Martel. He was no longer just a mayor of the palace. He was the savior of his people. His authority over the Frankish nobles and even the church was now unquestioned. The battle laid the foundation for a new dynasty. Charles's son, Pepin the Short, would go on to become the first Carolingian king. His grandson, Charlemagne, would forge the Carolingian Empire and be crowned emperor in Rome. Historians have long debated the battle's ultimate significance. Some argue it was merely a large-scale raid, its importance exaggerated for political reasons. They point to the internal problems of the Umayyad Caliphate as the real reason for their halt. Others maintain it was a pivotal moment in world history. They argue that a Frankish defeat could have led to the conquest of all of Gaul. Regardless of the debate, the psychological impact of the victory was immense. It demonstrated that the disciplined Frankish infantry could defeat the seemingly invincible Umayyad cavalry. The Battle of Tours became a foundational story for the developing identity of Western Europe. It was a symbol of a successful defense against an existential threat. The stand on that wooded plain echoed through the centuries. It shaped the political and religious map of the continent for 1,000 years. The legacy of Charles the Hammer was forever etched in the annals of history. The quiet determination of his infantry had turned back the tide. A new chapter for Francia, and for Europe, had begun.